This is Q&A. It's live and interactive. Tonight we're experimenting with Qanda Vote, a new way for Q&A viewers to share their opinions on the issues we discuss. You can go to the qandavote.tv website on your smartphone, tablet or computer to vote in our very first question, and that is, does religious belief make the world a better place? Does religious belief make the world a better place?
Feel free to comment below on whether it does or doesn't. I'm very curious.
We'll report back later on your views. First, let's move on to our next question for our panel. It comes from Paul Hanrahan.
My question is for Richard Dawkins. You're on the record as saying you can't prove that God doesn't exist, and you say you're agnostic rather than atheistic. Why do you appear as the champion of atheism around the world? Why do you accept offers to appear as the champion of atheism? And why are you so evangelical in the prosecution of your cause? Isn't that a touch hypocritical and unscientific?
Shots fired! Shots fired!
Yes, Richard Dawkins, I'm a bit confused about this because you just referred to yourself moments ago as being an atheist, and yet with the Archbishop of Canterbury you referred to yourself as an agnostic.
In the God delusion, I made a 7-point scale. 1 is I'm totally confident there is a God. 7 is I'm totally confident there is not a God. 6 is, to all intents and purposes, I'm an atheist. I live my life as though there is no God. But any scientist of any sense will not say that they positively can disprove the existence of anything. I cannot disprove the existence of the Easter Bunny, and so I'm agnostic about the Easter Bunny. It's in the same respect that I'm agnostic about God.
So, what proof, by the way, would change your mind?
That's a very difficult and interesting question because, I mean, I used to think that if somehow, you know, great big, giant, 900-foot-high Jesus with a voice like Paul Robeson suddenly strode in and said, "I exist, here I am." But even that, I actually sometimes wonder whether that would...
I think you're hallucinating.
Exactly.
I think I'm hallucinating as well, because the first question wasn't answered. Richard was asked if it's hypocritical and unscientific to call himself an atheist on one hand, while on the other hand being evangelical on the prosecution of atheism. If I understood the question correctly, that is what's called steel manning. So for those who do not understand steel manning, the idea is if you have a theory or an idea that you want to push or establish as fact, what you need to do is to throw at it the most strongest arguments that you can muster. If it stands, it's a strong argument. If it falls, it's a weak argument. The opposite of steel manning is what's called straw manning, where you use a very weak argument to support your theory. So, yeah, if the unfortunate part is that English is my second language, so maybe I could have missed something regarding that first question. I don't know, but it's very much scientific what Richard did.
I agree. I agree.
Can I just put the question to you? Could you ever provide Richard Dawkins with the sort of proof he requires for belief, scientific proof of the existence of God?
No, because I think he only accepts proof that is rooted in sense experience. In other words, he excludes the world of metaphysics, say the principle of contradiction, and he excludes the possibility of arguments that don't go against reason, but go beyond it.
So when Richard talks about what he would require as proof for the existence of God, he's hallucinating. And yet George just described the possible arguments for proof as beyond reason, not against reason. I'm confused.
But could I make one little suggestion as to why Richard calls himself an atheist? Because in one of his blogs in 2002, he was discussing whether he's an agnostic or a non-theist. He said he prefers to use the term atheist because it's more explosive, it's more dynamic. You can shake people up. Whereas if you're just going around saying that you're an agnostic or a non-theist, it's not. These are his own words.
Well, let's let Richard Dawkins.
I don't remember saying that. It wouldn't totally surprise me. It's in
2002.
It's an ongoing issue. What's the best way? There is a problem with the word atheist, especially in America. I don't know whether it's true in Australia. There's a lovely woman. I'm blocking on her name because I'm jet-lagged. She's Irish-American woman. Anybody help me?
There are quite a few Irish-American women. Sorry about that.
Sorry? No. Anyway, I do apologise personally to her for forgetting her name. She's an actress and she's got she did a film on how she escaped from the Roman Catholic Church, and it's a very moving film, and at the end her mother discovered that she was an atheist, and her mother phoned her up and said, "Well, I don't mind you not believing in God, but an atheist?" Her name's Julia Sweeney. So it's suddenly come back to me. I strongly recommend that. Now, the point is that the word atheist, unlike just simply not believing in God, has bad connotations. And so, to some extent, people have wished to depart from that and change the name to non-theist or secularist or non-believer. And I waver back and forth as to what's the best name to use. I sometimes call myself an atheist, sometimes a non-theist, and sometimes just a non-believer.
I also struggle with this. When I used to call myself atheistic, I had a strong belief that metaphysical or spiritual ideas were pipe dreams at best, because humans can never prove nor disprove something that's outside of their existence. It's just impossible. Then later on, I became agnostic. And now I just call myself non-religious because I no longer have any positions when it comes to the existence of God and how the universe came to be. I mean, it's impossible in my opinion. Because of that, I actually no longer subscribe to the biblical creation story in Genesis, nor the scientific Big Bang theory. I just don't know. If you were to approach me and ask me a question about these things, I'll just tell you I don't know, man. And I think that's okay.
George Pell, can I just come back to you on this question of the existence of God? Why would God randomly decide to provide proof of his existence to a small group of Jews 2,000 years ago and not subsequently provide any proof after that?
That's a very, 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 very good question.
Well, I don't think there's ever been any scientific proof. I don't believe God does anything randomly, although he might set up a system which works apparently through through chance, through random. But if you want to get something done, you've got to ask somebody. It's no good, say, my asking everyone in the congregation, "Will you do something?" Normally, you go to a busy person because you know they'll do it. And so, for some extraordinary reason, God chose the Jews.
At this point, my guy is just winging it. Whenever someone talks about what was or is in the mind of God, I'm instantly lost. Like, someone, please come find me.
They weren't intellectually the equal of either the Egyptians or the...
Intellectually?
Intellectually, morally...
How can you know intellectually?
Because you see the fruits of their civilization. Egypt was the great power for thousands of years before Christianity. Persia was a great power. Chaldea. The poor, the little Jewish people, they were originally shepherds. They were stuck, they're still stuck between these great powers.
That's not a reflection of your intellectual capacity, is it, whether or not you're a shepherd?
Well... no, it's not, but it's a recognition, it is a reflection of your intellectual development. But like many people are very, very clever and not highly intellectual. But my point is that...
Can I just interrupt? Are you including Jesus in that, who obviously was Jewish and was of that community?
Exactly.
So intellectually not up to it?
Oh.
It was at this moment that he knew. he fucked up.
Well, that's a nice try, Tony. The people, in terms of sophistication, the Psalms are remarkable. In terms of their buildings and that sort of thing, they don't compare with the great powers. But Jesus came not as a philosopher to the elite. He came to the poor and the battlers. And for some reason, he chose a very difficult, but actually they are now an intellectually elite, because over the centuries they've been pushed out of every other form of work. Jesus, I think, is the greatest, son of God, but leaving that aside, the greatest man that ever lived. So I've got a great admiration for the Jews, but we don't need to exaggerate their contribution in their early days.
All right.
And that's the end of part 2 of this clash between the Catholic bishop and the evolutionary biologist. Very interesting stuff indeed. Part 3 is coming soon. Just like, subscribe. If you hate me, please subscribe and see my downfall. And check out some links below if you just feel like you need to send a token of appreciation for me to continue doing this stuff.